Welcome back. This is News and Views on Salam Media. Just gone 8:36 a.m. and we're crossing over to the Western Cape to talk with Jaamia Galant, Palestine Solidarity Campaign chairperson. Jaamia, assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum, and shukran for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And I see a picture on my screen. I'm not sure if you can see it because you hooked up with us via telephone. A very, very powerful and big and beautiful poster saying, "Kick racist Israel out of FIFA." I should imagine this too sends a very strong message regarding the situation of the Loftus Five last week, where the five people were arrested at Loftus Versfeld at that soccer match, where they too had a few banners and they wore red T-shirts, and they made their position quite known, but they were then locked up for just being present and showing their support for Palestine. How do you view that?
Well, I think that kind of repression that we witnessed with those spectators last week is unacceptable. I think that for some reason our law enforcement officers here are taking lessons from abroad and seem to think that we are in a similar kind of police state where we need to silence people standing in solidarity with Palestine. I think it is completely counter to South Africa's own kind of actions in taking Israel to the International Court of Justice. How is it that your country can take Israel to the International Court of Justice, but you want to repress people who stand for solidarity with Palestine on the streets of Cape Town, on the streets of Joburg? Um, it completely doesn't make sense. So I think that there's a lot of pressure coming from other sectors of society, Zionist lobby groups who are putting pressure on our law enforcement officers to crack down on protesters, to close down our protest spaces, and we must absolutely not allow that to happen.
Okay, so we understand that hundreds of people rallied at Cape Town's Castle of Good Hope to mark Nakba Day. And Alhamdulillah, this was in a show of powerful support for the Palestinian people's cause. Can you tell us about yesterday's stance that was promoted by your organization, PSC?
Well, yesterday we marked Nakba Day yesterday, but Nakba Day was, of course, on the 15th of May, um, which is an annual commemoration that we have to commemorate Nakba Day 1948, 15th of May 1948, when the Zionist militias invaded Palestine and more than 700,000 Palestinians were expelled from their land. And what we were saying yesterday is 77 years later, we are witnessing an attempt at the second Nakba in Gaza, and that we stand firmly to say out loud that we will not allow another Nakba on our watch. And we see that happening not only with the complete devastation of Gaza, the complete devastation of their education, their medical and cultural institutions, but that they are also now forcing people into starvation in order to get them to leave their land. And so there's no hiding the intent from Israel, with the unconditional support of the US and Western powers, to realize a second Nakba and erase Palestinians from their land. And we, as people of conscience around the world, we just should not and cannot allow this to happen on our watch. It is a blight on all of our humanity if we stand silently and watch this happening.
So, Jamia, you had people gathering at Cape Town's Castle of Good Hope, and I've seen those banners that you displayed yesterday. Were you expecting a crackdown from SAPS, given what happened at Loftus Versfeld and the jailing of 5 people who stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people?
Um, no, I think that we when we as PSC, when we have had public rallies, we've also had them on the Seapoint Promenade in Cape Town. And this one was in the precincts of the castle, which is open to the public, so we were also walking around. But we've never had kind of interferences in those spaces. I think when law enforcement, ironically, kind of intervenes or interferes, is when they are when we are protesting in spaces that are, let's say, spaces that are less friendly to Palestine solidarity activities. And then we suddenly have, law enforcement officers that are there to protect other people when all evidence shows that all of our rallies, all of our protests have been peaceful protests. So this claim to protecting other people is completely nonsense. There's no evidence, to suggest that other people need protecting from protesters standing in solidarity with Palestine. So we did not expect any pushback. We've always had complete freedom within the precincts of the castle. We've held our rallies there. The only thing that they ask us is, of course, to protect the property itself, so that we don't put posters up on the walls and so on. But we have other means of displaying our messages, which we did all around the stadium yesterday, all around the precinct yesterday, and it was including the one that you spoke about, kick Israel out of FIFA. We also had other displays that particularly called out U.S. imperialism, particularly, we're saying that the U.S. is no longer, we can't even call them complicit in the genocide. They are actually active participants in the genocide of Palestine. Uh, and we also had many posters calling for different consumer boycotts. We had a group, Conscious Consumers, who spoke to people about alternative products, and particularly products that we should be boycotting. Big companies that benefit from the genocide, that have extensive trade, not only trade in Israel, but trade in Israel in a way that directly supports the occupation and siege of Gaza.
So earlier on, Jamia, you mentioned that you have these rallies even at Sea Point, and we do know that there's a very big Jewish community in that part of the Western Cape, Sea Point and beyond. When you have these rallies, have you ever met with hostility or threats by SAPS or other such parties that perhaps you are trespassing or they don't want to see or hear about your views regarding the support of the Palestinian people? I'm interested because I do know about the very huge Jewish community residing there. However, I hasten to add that not all Jews are Zionists. And vice versa. We do know there are lots of Jews that are anti the genocide and they are friends of Palestine. Your thoughts?
Yes, that is correct. We've got a group, South African Jews for the Free Palestine, who have partnered with PSC on many of our activities. But yes, of course, we have encountered many instances of hostility. And again, I would not say that hostility has come from Jews. They've come from Zionist supporters, if not Zionists themselves, and certainly Zionist supporters. And we've encountered those hostilities not only in places like Sea Point. We have got a group of PSC activists who protest every Saturday morning outside Cape Union Mart stores at three of the big malls in Cape Town, the V&A Waterfront, Canal Walk, and Cavendish Square. And all of them have reported that the hostilities, the abuse that comes their way does not only come even from white people. So Zionism stretches beyond color. It, Christian Zionism is very strong within many of our communities. So that hostility comes from a Zionist base. It comes from that support base, and that's how we must think about it. And Christian Zionism is not race based. It may be race based, for example, in the US, but in South Africa it is not. South African Christian Zionism is strong within white and black and colored communities. Um, so we must be aware of that. And when we have gone to have our rallies in Sea Point, for which we have always applied for permission from the city. And so in fact we've had the cooperation of law enforcement because we've applied for permission. And so their presence there is meant to be protecting us as the protesters. But we've had concerted social media campaigns from the Residents Association in Sea Point to try and prevent these pro-Palestine rallies and gatherings on the promenade, which is a completely public space, by the way. And they fail because we have actually exercised our right to protest, our right to freedom of expression, and we have very publicly called consistently on all of our platforms that we do not support any Islamophobic speech, nor anti-Semitic speech, nor racist speech, etc. So, we have been, I think, completely consistent in our position, in standing in solidarity with Palestine, in saying very clearly that we are anti-Zionist, we're not anti-Jewish. This is not a religious struggle. This is a struggle about land, about reclaiming identity, about reclaiming statehood for Palestinians. And I think that has been important for us to maintain as our message.
And sadly, that still seems to be the misconception out in the broader public that the Palestinian issue is a Muslim issue. It's about religion, and it's not about that at all. I just want to share
Yes.
one or two messages that have come up on Facebook. Shamima Dolly Salih says there's a lot of threats. Yes, a lot of threats when you guys are in Sea Point, which you touched on as well. And she says on social media as well. And one of her other comments is, and I do agree with that 101%, is that there's Zionism in all religions. And we need to understand what exactly is Zionism. Obviously, it's about people believing that they are God's chosen people, and you know other people that don't believe or follow their thoughts and their faith, and their ideologies, then are obviously anti-Zionist, and they don't I think Zionism really, and I'm going to give you the platform in a minute or two, is really about oppressing people that don't think alike as you do. That's the way I see it. You just want to annihilate people who don't have the same viewpoint as you do. And I think a lot of Zionism is also about us and them, and white and black and white and brown. White being the pure race, black and brown people don't matter and don't count. Abdullah Shabal, thank you indeed for all of your messages as well. I can't read them all out on air right now, but the one you do say is the media landscape does distort a lot of the issues, and they'd always run the gambit of, in inverted commas, Hamas this, Hamas that, hostages, etc., etc., etc. Until today, we do know, Jaamia, that people who haven't understood the situation in Palestine and are very pro Zionist still believe, they seem to think that the whole flare up in Palestine started with 7th of October 2 years ago. They forget about the history of Palestine. They forget about the 70 odd years that the Palestinian people have been occupied, have been oppressed, have been suppressed, and indirectly, of course, we do know that ethnic cleansing has started 77 years ago. Over to you, Jamia.
This is exactly why it is important for us to always commemorate Nakba Day, precisely to remind people that the genocide we're witnessing at the moment in Gaza did not start on the 7th of October 2023. We have, in fact, been commemorating Nakba Day for many more years, but the point is that it is an attempt by people to forget history, to forget that the attempt to get Palestine off their land was already instituted from 1948 in a very, very deliberate and concerted way. So we mustn't fool ourselves in thinking that there was some kind of new action that started on October 2023, or that Hamas was the instigator of some or other offensive against Israel, when in fact Gaza was already under siege and illegal occupation by Israeli forces. So absolutely, we do not, we do not stand by any kind of report that talks about October 2023 as the start of anything. It really was a demonstration of resistance, and in what we saw was Israel's retaliation to that resistance, to their illegal occupation.
I'm going to read two more posts by Abdullah Chabal, and then I'm going to let you comment on his on what he has to say, and we'll wrap up for this morning. It's been wonderful talking with you. But Abdullah says Zionism is basically white supremacy. And then his second message says, for all of my legitimate grievances I have with the South African government, at least in Johannesburg, I won't get thrown in a concentration camp for saying, let's just take that again. For all my legitimate grievances I have with the South African government, at least in Johannesburg, I won't get thrown in a concentration camp for saying Palestinian children deserve to live too. And I do echo your sentiments, Abdullah. Thank you indeed for being a part of the conversation. You as well, Shamima Dali Sali, for your comments on our social media posts this morning. Back to you, Jamia. Maybe you'd like to say something about those posts, and then we'll allow you to wrap up on the obviously Palestine Solidarity Campaign, your role, and how you believe your protests and your actions do matter to the Palestinian people.
Thank you. Yeah, yesterday we said it very loudly as well, that we cannot get tired of standing in solidarity with Palestine because Palestinians don't have a choice. They don't have a choice to say, we are tired of the bombs, we are tired of being starved to death. They have to endure all of these violence, the violence and destruction by Israel. And we cannot say that we are now tired of standing in solidarity with them. We have to take inspiration from their sumud, from their steadfastness in standing against the oppression and the violence that they are facing. And so this is something that we must, keep telling ourselves that as long as the Palestinians are not free, we cannot celebrate the freedoms that we have. And I want to end with again a reminder of what you mentioned earlier is that we have to understand that this this freedom struggle of the Palestinians, it's a political struggle. Zionism itself is a political movement. It's a political movement that was established particularly for the establishment and protection of a Jewish nation, right? The fact that they themselves have um, that they themselves use these two words interchangeably is something is it's a trap that we must not fall into ourselves. That Zionism is not the same as Judaism, and so to keep telling ourselves that this is a political movement and an imperial project that they are exercising in Palestine, and that is what we are standing against.
Okay,
When we are fighting Zionism,
it's a white supremacist political movement. We get that. Thank you
yeah,
for pointing that out. I also want to ask you, just before you wrap up, I need to throw in one more question. A lot of people kind of are suggesting that they're becoming protest weary. On Saturday in London, there was a protest march, and they had upwards of a 500,000 people that came out um, in strong support of the Palestinian people. What do you say to our local people and people perhaps elsewhere in the world that are perhaps saying that we've become protest weary? Or what difference does it make if 100 or 200 of us stand on a street corner with our placards? Is it going to make a difference? Is someone going to take notice and do something about it?
we have to believe that it matters. It matters whether it is one person who stands in the same place and protests every week in the same place, or whether it is 500,000 people taking to the streets. What matters is that we are keeping the Palestinian issue alive. What matters is that the Palestinian people can see people all over the world standing in solidarity with their cause. And that is what matters. Because our actions also give Palestinians hope. Because our actions give them hope that we can make a difference in our own countries in terms of putting pressure on our countries to sanction Israel, to isolate Israel, to put that economic and political pressure on Israel to end the occupation. So I've heard the same stories. I've just said to you, this is what we keep trying to tell people, that we mustn't become tired, that we can't afford to become tired because Palestinians don't have that choice of becoming tired, but people do. And my position is always that whether you're one person, or whether you're 10 persons, or 100,000 people, take to the streets and make your voices heard.
Jaamia Galant, a Palestine Solidarity Campaign chairperson, thank you indeed for your insights. May you guys continue being as strong as you are, or rather grow from strength to strength. The Palestinian people need every bit of support that we can muster up and show up in their support, inshallah. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Lovely talking to you, and keep up that flag flying as high as you possibly can. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Shukran. Shukran.
One
Alaikum.
1 minute after 9 o'clock. This is the second part of News and Views on Salam Media. And a reminder that this hour is brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency. And don't forget, in this hour as well, we will be listening up to the Fired Up series with Hafiz Imran Chunara. He is a personal excellence mentor and also the CEO of Africa Muslims Agency. So we're going to take a listen to that a little later on in the show. So please do stay with us.